Danny Phantom, Spider-Man, and everything except for basically anything besides the character designs of Invader Zim. These were the ingredients chosen to create the 2012 animated children's TV series Randy Cunningham, as part of Disney XD's ongoing efforts to turn the network into the boys-only utopia they always dreamed of. This was a show focused on Randy, a 9th grader who also happens to be a ninja, which no one besides his best friend Howard knows about. In the US, the show started off August 2012, the same week Gravity Falls premiered, and much like it, I only watched a few episodes of Randy Cunningham late in its lifetime. Unlike Gravity Falls, however, I never really found any incentive to continue watching until today, thanks to such lovely viewers as Bianca, who also informed me that there is something called a National Ninja Day, which I can only imagine is when all the Fortnite streamers of the world come together and watch a 24-hour loop of cheerleader ninjas or ninja cheerleaders. Which is the poorer life decision? Being a Fortnite streamer. As previously mentioned, the show takes elements from such shows as Spider-Man and Danny Phantom, with this teenager secretly being a superhero concept, and seeing as how Randy is a ninja also makes use of that in him having a scarf, which allows him to swing around and catch enemies like Spider-Man. Whenever he transforms, he also looks almost exactly the same as his usual self, hanging out with the same people and with even his voice being the same, like Danny Phantom. This isn't to say it is a ripoff, no. In fact, Miraculous Ladybug would go on to borrow many elements of the show, and I'd say that show is doing fairly well for itself. Look at all those Season 3 promos. Look at how fan-made they are. Look at how original their thumbnails are. Thanks to a mysterious book named the Nomicon, which Randy randomly finds in his own room one day for no apparent reason, he is able to transform into the ninja, a powerful hero destined to protect the world from evil, in this case consisting of a creature only known as the Sorcerer, who is able to control all living beings in his reach with the help of his weird slime balls. He's like Mineta, but they don't try to pass him off as a good guy in this one. The Sorcerer also gets assistance from John DiMaggio with a brain for an arm, and his assistant Viceroy. All three are basically hellbent on destroying the ninja at all cost, while Randy tries to make his way through high school whilst protecting it and the entire city of Norrisville. Unlike in Danny Phantom, he is not surrounded by many friends, or even his parents, who actually don't remember making a single appearance. Instead, we only have his friend Howard, with whom he shares a chemistry mostly consisting of a lot of yelling at each other and fart jokes. Yeah, these are 9th graders, alright. I'm not the biggest fan of these two right off the bat. I'm fine with each on their own whenever they go off to either save the day or just spend some time at an arcade. But almost every other episode felt like it had to involve some sort of conflict or just constant bickering between the two. This may partially be because the show's creators wanted to infuse some conflict into the show, with the troubles of being friends in this situation where one is faced with so much more responsibility, but it just got way too frequent for my taste. There are supporting characters on the show, but most of them are either entirely forgettable plot puppets meant to introduce the two to whatever monster of the week they have to face off against, or potential shipping candidates. Oh god. So much shipping. The Monster of the Week format isn't all the show is going for though. Most of the time Randy Cunningham has some ongoing narrative over the course of the season, either in the form of reoccurring villains, references to lessons Randy has learned with the help of the Nomicon, or this overarching plot involving one of their classmates named Julian, the perkiest goth you will ever meet. Despite having a strong affinity for everything gothy and evil, he mostly just stumbles around school getting beaten up a lot, but at some point becomes this major side character with an evil dark twin trapped inside a shadow dimension who comes to their world and becomes one of the main villains of the second season. While the Sorcerer could technically be considered the true antagonist, he doesn't seem to have all that deep a backstory, so I found this slow progression from annoying side character to main bad guy to be refreshing. That's right, this random goth boy is more interesting than a villain literally voiced by Tim Curry. Some more threatening villains include Jennifer Tilly as the Sorceress, who would often try to take over the town in disguise, and the ninja previous to Randy, McAnthy, who I'm pretty sure is supposed to be a parody of Rex from Napoleon Dynamite. The villains are such a big part of the show, but are really just goofballs for the most part. Don't imagine his assistant were more reminiscent of Dr. Eggman and his robot sidekicks from Sonic X, if anything. Both of them are just as incompetent, often being the cause for their own failure, and easily defeated by both Randy and even Howard.
Sorry, Cunningham. This week's is Winky Face the Movie.
Now there's a movie prediction I wish didn't come true. I will admit that I can at least somewhat sympathize with DiMaggio's character. In the season 1 finale, he built a time machine just so he could go back to when his favorite cereal was discontinued so he could buy another box. That's about the level of evil we're dealing with here, and these two aren't the only goofy part about this show. Don't let my intro fool you. This is a Disney XD kids show first and foremost, and as such needs to contain as many XD lols as possible. I'm talking potty humor, barfs, random butt shots, random butt monkeys, more butts on the butt monkeys, butts, too many butts, and most of all, a whole lot of
"What the juice, it's ninja time, smoke bomb."
Much like the network's other shows like Kick Butowski, this one also has a whole lot of catchphrases, which I normally don't have an issue with. I understand their marketability relatability and think they can actually work in favor of a show's charm when used in the right way. But when a show is spouting the same few nonsensical slurs in your face throughout every single episode over and over and over, it gets hard to wobble up a deal with. It's saying something when one of my favorite episodes of the series was that one holiday special where Randy wasn't even able to use the smoke bombs for an entire evening. Although season 2's Hanukkah special is still the superior holiday episode. I don't know, maybe I was just too old already when the show first aired, but what I much preferred the comedy over was its fairly unique art style. A mixture between the environments and color palette of Teletoon's Detentionaire and Nickelodeon's Invader Zim. While Jonan Vasquez did provide the series with its main characters and most of the monsters' designs, he wasn't involved with any of the actual animation process, although, now that I think about it, he must have at least talked to the show's staff in person at some point because, well, just look at the guys voicing Randy and Howard. The show has a very rugged, grimy look to it, especially in sequences the Sorcerer is involved in. It also kinda reminds me of Motor City, another Disney XD show Titmos was involved in that was airing around the same time. Candy Runningham also has surprisingly fluid and diverse action sequences, and while most of them only consist of Randy running away for a while, until at some point he decided that maybe just spurting some one-liners isn't the best course of action, the monsters he faces off against were still creative enough to keep you engaged. I looked forward to these moments the most when watching the show. Whenever Randy entered the Nomicon, they didn't just cheap out and reuse the same sequence over and over and seemed to actually care about the lore of this universe. Episodes like the one involving time travel I have mentioned before also proved that the show is capable of stringing along a plotline over a full 20 minutes, as they go back to when the first ninja was still around to fight the Sorcerer. So unlike in Avatar, there aren't multiple threats the ninja of each generation has to face off against, as well like this one dude who just had nothing better to do all these years, which even Tim Curry seems to have gotten tired of eventually, since he got replaced with Ben Cross in season 2. Other than that, I'd argue that this season improves upon the first in almost every way though. Not just because of the introduction of that story arc I mentioned, but also with improved lighting, more interaction with the other students at school, and far weirder plotlines. There was a certain charm to the completely ludicrous nature of this show. You can tell that they were trying really hard to produce the best possible silly action comedy for edgy kids they could.
So it fumigates from the tizzle of the McFizzle to a splashdown slizzle. Here's the Mac Dizzle who made it hizzle.
Dates are for dudes who don't have bros to play vids with.
They were trying really hard. It seems like the comedy wasn't their full focus at first though. In the show's pilot, you can see that Heidi Wienerman, Howard's sister and host of the school's news show, was intended to be the ninja's love interest while still having no clue about his real identity. John DiMaggio's character would have kept tabs on the whereabouts of the ninja alongside Viceroy and a new character named Judy. The Sorcerer is nowhere to be seen though. Only Howard and Rennie's relationship seems to have fully remained the same. While I would have much preferred an even more dramatic turn for the series in its second season with something like this romance subplot going on, I also get that not every show in Disney XD can be Gravity Falls. When the season 2 finale rolled around, the creators still seemed pretty confident it would go on for at least a few more years though, and left it on a pretty hefty cliffhanger, involving a mysterious character seen in many of the episodes prior, who announced to finally take on the ninja in the upcoming season. The show was cancelled shortly after, but one of the show's creators would go on to start a series of 9 secrets never revealed about the show on his Tumblr, which was also cancelled after only 5 of them were released. And they ask me why I never grow attached to anything. The resulting finale we're left with was at least satisfying enough to give closure to that whole Julian arc, with Randy and the Sorcerer teaming up in a cool 2-on-1 fight against him. I would like to note though that they actually used that dumb, annoying trope where one character has to move away and the other gets pissed at him, only for them to revert it by the end of it. Sure, do an episode like that. I don't care. Just maybe don't put it in your season finale if you aren't even 100% sure the series would go on for another season, maybe.
Yeehaw! I'm a big baby cowboy!
Would I have wanted it to? Not really. There's not that much for me to say about Randy Cunningham that doesn't become apparent from watching just one episode of it, as it tends to be very predictable in the way its characters are written and the plots would play out. It got to the point where there was an episode in which I literally predicted 2 jokes before they were about to happen in succession, which I guess boils down to the comedy again, but seeing as how this is an action comedy, I can't really ignore that aspect just because it looks pretty. I can partially recommend the show if you're in it for some fast-paced action, cool monster designs, weird atmosphere and great songs here and there. Except for the theme song, funnily enough, which despite its great visuals is just god-awful. I much prefer the ad-lib parody when Howard took over for an episode.
What the hey, something you, and what the juice, and he's so Bruce.
Randy Cunningham is a decent show with a few flaws here and there that I could see others being able to overlook, and I just hope you were able to enjoy the show when I couldn't. I'm not here to change anyone's opinions about the things they love. That's what Lily Orchard is for.
No one's gonna fall for that. Howard!